Welcome, everyone, to Meetings and Miles. I'm Pamela, and this is my co host, Mark. How are you today, Mark?
I am doing spectacular, Pamela. Earlier today, I had the best lime smoothie. It was awesome.
Mark, how many times we have to go over this? A margarita is not a smoothie.
I don't like your labels, Pamela. I won't be pigeonholed. But how have you been keeping?
I've been good. I'm full wrapping up indoor frisbee. So I play
Ooh.
inside a soccer complex, and it was the first time playing co-ed throughout winter. And my team won B-side, so very
Woohoo!
exciting. Stakes were very high. It just involved going to Boston Pizza afterwards for a beverage. But yeah, now I'm starting to get into training for outdoor frisbee with my new touring team. So I've been hitting the track and trying to get used to the wind factors and all that good stuff.
Oh, you're a better person than me.
But yes, so Mark, today we have a lovely guest. I'd love to have you introduce her for us.
Yeah, so our guest, I have known her for essentially for almost all of my life. However, haven't seen a whole lot of her in the last 40 years. We just recently reconnected, and she is not your typical business traveler. Well, she is a business traveler, but her meeting rooms are not in boardrooms. They're on stage in front of tens of thousands of people. Our guest today is none other than multi-Juno award-winning recording artist from the band the Wailin Jennys. We've got Nicky Mehta. So let's get right into it. Here is our interview with Nicky. Welcome to the podcast, Nicky. It's so great to have you here today.
It's great to be here.
Nicky, can you please tell us a little bit about your background? You've got such a storied career and done so many interesting things. What have you been up to?
Well, we just celebrated our 23rd anniversary as a band. So this is the Wailin Jennys. I know it's like dog years for a band. Most bands don't last that long, so we've been really lucky. I started off I actually planned to go into academia, be a professor. That didn't work out. Took a year off, did some backup singing. That kind of took me over a couple of years. And then I started bands, and then I did my solo album, and then I met Ruth Moody at the Winnipeg Folk Festival, and Kara left, and we originally were just getting together to do one night of singing, and it took off, and then the Jennies were formed, and it's been super busy ever since. We've always tried to catch up to things, which is a really fortunate place to be in as a musician. It's not an easy career choice.
No, and you're absolutely right. It's you don't hear of bands staying together this long. Is there any secret to success to staying together for so long?
Um, I think it's about personalities learning how to work together, especially creative personalities. And our band has always been like a band of singer-songwriters. So, our first couple of altos left to go back to their solo work. And then our most recent alto has been with us for like 15 years. So she came on board, and she's such a great presence. So hiring the right people, like having the right people, having the hopefully the right colleagues with you, the people you're going to work with. It's kind of like if you do enough traveling, it's kind of like a marriage in some ways, or just these very close sibling relationships. And so having the right people around is huge, so
Yeah, it's like
especially for
family.
touring. Touring is yeah, very much so. It's very intense. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, maybe could you take us back to that, first time touring, first time going on the road? What was that like?
Well, the first time I did any touring was as a backup singer. And So it was nice. It was a nice introduction to it because there wasn't a lot of pressure on me. I was just along for the ride. I didn't have to do any of the planning, which was just absolutely fantastic. And sometimes I wish I was in that position, just like a hired gun that, doesn't have to deal with all of the management aspect because Ruth and I manage our band. So that was like, it was tons of fun. It's when I first was starting out. And so it was
Mm.
just, it was so novel, and exciting. And we did conferences and stuff too at the time, and with the band and with myself and when I was doing backup work. So that's a whole other side of music that's really interesting when you're first starting out and doing the more like conference business type things.
Interesting.
I used to call it sort of the cattle call because they sort of call you out on stage at these conferences. You get to play
Mm.
three songs and you're hoping you'll get booked and stuff, and then you're also, there's the trade room and all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
So we did a lot of that in the beginning too. So yeah, it was just so fun, and we toured. I toured as like, so I did the backup stuff, then I did some solo stuff, mostly in Canada, some in the States, and then the band happened. So it was a lot of touring across Canada constantly and getting to see all these little towns and stuff. And
That's
yeah,
incredible.
yeah, it was tons of fun. Yeah.
And when you were doing these early travel days too, like what was the schedule like? Was it a lot to back? Was it like multiple destinations in one trip or kind of home and back? Like what did that look like?
They were long tours. Like there were
Mm,
tours we'd go out for 6 weeks, and
okay.
anywhere from like, at that point, like, 3 to 6 weeks typically. And it was a lot of, um, DIY at that
Mm.
point. We used to travel with, and it was just the three of us at the time. Now we travel with like seven people, but at the time it was just the three of us. And we toured with our own sound system and we slept on people's floors, all the
Yeah.
things you hear about a lot of
Ah.
bands doing, like you just when you're starting out. And Yeah, not a lot of hotels, a lot of driving, and a lot of like, yeah, setting up your own sound system. You're doing your own merch. You're counting on
Mm.
sound people at the venues, which is a whole other ball of wax. You don't have a team at all. So, and it's a lot of also, trying to find the support staff, the agents, the labels, the road manager, the merch person, the sound person, all that stuff. So
Mm.
you just don't have that, which is a really good, it's a good way to learn. You're kind of thrown into the fire and then you figure it out as you go. So
Yeah, and I think the average person, at least I didn't understand
Mm.
like how many people it takes to put on a tour.
Yeah.
yes,
A-
absolutely.
And
It's a whole team. Yeah.
it's sorcery. And then it makes you, I think it helps you as like a leader and boss down the road when you need to to set up your good support team and everything going forward. You know how to do it practically yourself. So yeah, that's incredible.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of like they say, like if you work in a restaurant, you should start from being a dishwasher and work
Mm.
up because then you always know what everybody does and you have compassion for what people are dealing with and all
Mm.
that. And I feel like, yeah, those early days where we did everything really made us aware of how important a team is and that everybody has a really important part to play in it. So once we were actually able to hire people, then yeah, we kind of we knew how to navigate it. We knew how to work with people. Um, we knew what kind of trouble they encountered with their jobs and stuff. Yeah, and we're self-managed. We were managed for a while, and then we realized, we know this system better. It takes a lot more work, but at least we're not looking over people's shoulders. And
Mm.
um, yeah, it's great. I wouldn't have changed anything really in the beginning like that. That was such a special time.
Oh, that's awesome. And I know you started off going a lot around Canada and through the US. Are there certain hotspots for you, places that you get to more often?
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, we're actually barely in Canada now, which is not great. I mean, we
Oh.
should be back. It's been years actually. I think it's been almost 10 years since we played Winnipeg, which is ridiculous. But um, the only way to make a real career is in with music is you either tour all the time
Mm.
or you go to the States. And
Mm.
that's the States is that's where you can actually make a real career,
Mm.
because you can fly into an area where every gig is like 2 hours apart, and you're going to get
Mm.
still really big gigs. Whereas in Canada, you know, where the drives are long, the money isn't great, and you just
Mm.
can't sustain a career, especially if you want all of those support people. But back then, we toured the UK a lot. We toured
Mm.
Europe, some of Europe. We toured Australia. We were able to because we were able to go for longer periods. None of us had kids, and yeah,
Ah.
so those days were busy, and then we got to see a lot of the world. I mean, yeah, a lot of the Western.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And then so what
Mhm.
happened when you had kids? What changed then?
A lot changed.
Everything?
We went off,
Everything?
I mean, everything, yeah, everything changed. I mean, we've always insisted on carving out time for ourselves, like for everybody, like everybody has kids in the band now.
Mm.
And we took, hiatuses to do that. And I remember
Mm.
every single time our agents would say, you're making a mistake. You're at the top of your game. You're at the height of your career, or like you're about to peak, and don't do this. And they were wrong every time. And
Mm.
we've always been, we would come back, and our amazing audience would have stuck with us that whole time. And we have very loyal fans. It's amazing. So yeah, I was the first to have kids. Um, and the plan had always been that we'd return and we'd bring the baby along, and then I found out I was having twins, which was a total surprise.
Oh.
And I remember calling Ruth and saying, like, I don't think I can continue because I don't know how we would
Oh.
travel with twins. And then we just got to talking about it, and we thought, okay, well, let's try a bus. Let's First and only
Mm.
time we ever had tour buses was when we toured with the boys. We recorded an album 4 months after they were born.
Oh,
We
wow.
actually fired our management like 2 weeks after they were born. um and yeah and then so yeah, they were 4 months old when we did the album, and then they were 7 months old. And actually, at the time when they were like a few months old, my husband got a job at Apple. And
Oh,
so we decided to move to California so he could, explore that. And we stayed there for about, I think it was a year and a half. And so we had to fly into California with certain visas. And then every time we had a tour, we had to fly back to Canada so that Grant could change his visa to go on the road. So
Oh.
it was like pretty nuts. And then
Oh,
so then
wow.
we'd have tour buses and we would have like the back star lounge, but it would be
Yeah.
like trying to keep, like, we built these like walls to keep the boys on the bed so they could, because they were walking at that point.
Oh, wow.
But it was bananas. I was nursing them both. I was not sleeping at all. I was
Oh.
doing merch. I was paying everybody. Yeah, it was a really tough time. And we were going for like 3 weeks at a
Wow.
time, and yeah, it was
Oh.
totally insane. And then Heather and Ruth both toured with their little ones, but one at a time, and varying degrees of liking and disliking it. It's it's
Yeah.
it's it's a hard go. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Nobody's sleeping, so
Oh,
do you
no.
find are your tours shorter now that
yeah,
you got family commitments?
they're a lot shorter. I mean, my boys are 15 and a half now, but Heather has a 12-year-old and a 6-year-old. So she still is a little one. And then Ruth's guy is like 9. So I think it's just a lot harder when they're little to leave. We have all have very supportive partners
Mm.
who are able to stay home with the kids, because that would, obviously, we couldn't do it without them. But yeah, so all to say that our tours are much shorter. They're all in the States. We've done a couple of things overseas, but they've been very short. And Heather just started teaching at their little sort of homeschool school.
Mm.
And she's from she's from the States. So they live in Taos. And so she's sort of, they've become a lot more truncated. And so now we're out like a week at a time max. And it's, a week every other month, but this coming year is actually going to be a bit busier, but they're
Yeah.
very short. Yeah.
I do love this though, that obviously challenging, but you still having kids and your career and making it happen and accommodating, like as you say, colleagues, but fellow musicians and supportive partners, and just like these different elements to pull it together to be able to do this. And I think it's just so important and lovely to hear that, because and I don't have kids, but I'm always just so inspired when I hear these kind of circumstances. Like I had a friend get hired when she was like 8 months pregnant for her next job, and it's like, yeah, she's gonna have a baby, but she's still like, a highly qualified like asset in the workplace. And so I just
Right.
love hearing these types of stories and the inspirations to make it happen. And yeah,
Yeah.
and be
Yeah. And I think
successful.
that's, yeah. And I think it's important for other women and men to hear
Yeah.
that, they can parent on the road. They can parent in an unorthodox way. It's,
Hmm.
and for, like, I think it's always been really, speaking specifically of women, I think it's really been, uh, the feedback we get from women saying it's so exciting to see three, solo artists who can come together and create something that's, bigger than the sum of its parts, and something that, where we can kind of put the egos aside and work together and work really, like, um and just for audiences to kind of get inspired by that, but then also for us to say we are going to have other parts of our lives. We're not interested in just doing this. And then we're going to find a way to do it. And we're going to stop listening to all of the naysayers and do what we need
Mm.
to do, and
Yes.
to see it then also succeed, beyond that. I think, yeah, I think I mean, we're always kind of amazed that we were able to make it work, but it's, we get a lot of energy from people. So to get that kind of feedback that we're, inspiring people to be able to imagine doing that for themselves is pretty cool.
Love that. It's like your true
That's
audience. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
that is awesome. And I know things haven't always been smooth sailing on the road, in particular a harrowing trip to the UK. Tell us about that, please.
I will. Yeah, so we toured the UK a lot. So there was some familiarity, but we were, most of us were based in Winnipeg at that point. So we were flying from Winnipeg to Toronto. Anybody who's done this knows the whole thing. You get there in the evening, and then you're going to take your flight over to London, or wherever in Europe. And so you're awake for quite some time. If you don't manage to sleep on the plane, then
Mm.
when you get there, you're not doing so well. But so we flew from Toronto to London, didn't sleep, got to London and realized that our cases at the time for our guitars were in these styrofoam cases that were supposed to be really robust, but somehow, so I got my guitar off the whatever you call it, the luggage.
The belt.
Mhm.
What
The
do you call
belts.
that?
Yeah.
Belt.
Yeah.
That's it, the
Yeah.
luggage belt. And there was a huge hole in the end where the neck is, in the neck of the guitar, and it looked like we couldn't figure out how this happened, but we imagined that a forklift tine had gone into the case and split the guitar neck right up the middle. And so this was not something that was going to get repaired over there. So we started having to deal with that with the airline, and then we were like, okay, well, we have to track down a guitar in London. We had a sort of a hard time to hit in Liverpool, because we were taking a ferry over to Northern Ireland to do some shows that were, like we had to make them. You can't not make your gigs. So um,
Yeah.
so then in the meantime, we'd gone to the lounge to start trying to make these phone calls. And we had back in the day the GPSs where you have to load the SIM cards in. And before we left, we'd loaded all the European maps on there. We get there and somehow they've all disappeared. So now we don't know how we're going to navigate this trip. And so
Ah,
we,
since we live in London now, there's like, like, how do you get around? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So then, okay, we got to go pick up a SIM card. So we get our van. It's a splitter van, so decent sized van, driving along the M1, busy, busy, in start at that point, the start of rush hour traffic. All of a sudden, on the highway, the transmission goes on the van, and my husband was driving. And driving on the wrong side of the road and all that stuff. So like he's pretty good with that kind of stuff, but it's still new, and then realizes like he has no control over the van. So he had to kind of like coast the van to an exit, get off, and now we have to try and find a van. So he calls the place to get it replaced. Two of us leave to go and try and deal with the whole SIM card guitar issue. We have to go to this guitar place. I pick out a guitar that's not the best, but we're so rushed. Then we go to a mall to try and in a cab. So the cab, the entire trip is like an hour, and we're in a cab. And the guy was thankfully so nice and so willing to do everything. Plus, he was going to make a lot of money off it. So, so we go and try and find the SIM card. They don't have them, but we have the guitar. We go back to the van. They've gotten a new van, and we go and fill up this new van. So we fill up the van, and then we have to go across town again to try and get a new GPS. So we go into this electronics store, pick up the GPS, we're at the cash, and all of a sudden these alarms start going off in the store, and we're like, what is going on? And it turned out they were closing, and they put the key in the door, but somebody had pulled the key out of the door. And so no, we were like, we didn't know. They had to lock everything down.
Ah,
And unfortunately, this person of color was in the store, and it was terrible. They just assumed that he'd taken the key, and it turned into this huge fight. And I felt like very conflicted because I didn't want this guy to be dealing
mm,
with that. I wanted to kind of step in and help, but we had to go. And it was just like,
mm,
okay, be nice, stop, like that kind of, please leave this guy alone. Then we
mhm.
got to exit this the store. And then we get back in the van and realize that our violin player had left his wallet at the gas station, which was
No.
across
Oh,
town.
oh
And
no.
this is London in rush hour traffic. And so that we went to get out on the highway finally. And by this point, we'd been up for like 36 hours, and we had to
Oh,
drive to Liverpool, which I believe was a couple of hours. And my husband was so tired. So we just came up with this idea that I would just smack him randomly so he didn't know it was coming and try and keep him awake. But we
yeah.
made it. We made it to Liverpool. We got a hotel for 2 hours, I think, and then took the ferry over and commenced the
Oh
tour. And
wow.
it was a great tour, so it all worked out well. But
Nice.
we've never had anything like that ever happen again, before or
Well,
again.
you learned your lesson on crisis management.
Yeah. To say
Well,
the
yeah,
least.
yeah, yeah, exactly. There were some lessons in there for sure, and also just that experience. It's like once that happens, very little is gonna happen that's gonna be worse than that, in terms of
Mm.
logistics and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah, it must be
you
all
always have to have the
surreal.
journal.
Like, was there any like freaking out or tears, or it's just sort of like, okay, yep, like just bring it, I'll just deal with it.
You know, See, this is where those early days teach you, because we'd done so much like guerrilla touring, like where it was there,
Ah.
no luxury, no comfort at all, that you just kind of roll with it. There
Mm,
was I probably a little bit of panic, but everybody had a
mm,
role to play. everybody played their role and together we got there, you know. So it was real teamwork, and so you also get you get a new sense of what your colleagues are capable of, you know,
Yeah.
and then everybody just is stronger with that, you know. You know
Yeah.
you can
Might have
count on people to keep their heads on straight, kind of thing. Yep,
probably brought you closer together.
Yeah.
it did. And we will always have that story. I think that
Yeah.
story is being told, you know, several dozen times.
What? We're not special here on the podcast. There's not a
Well,
world premiere.
you got the full story. We don't
Okay.
normally have the opportunity
Yeah.
to tell the full story. Yeah.
No, it's fantastic.
Hmm. And then it also it was making me think too, as creatives and artists on the road, like how like do you get different inspiration from traveling or visiting different places? Like tell us like how that all plays with your
Y-
art and your
Your creative
craft.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah, you absolutely you do, because you're going to some just gorgeous places and
Mhm.
people are telling you the most amazing stories. You know, we used to sign after shows that ended up with COVID, but um, at festivals, we'll sometimes talk to people, and just the stories people have, the association they have with the music, that's very inspiring. And then just the locales, like you know, Heather tells a story for one of her songs called Across the Sea, and she wrote that on a ferry, on another ferry. She went outside to
Mm.
go in the evening, and there was a full moon out, and that really inspired that song. And yeah, so there's always lots to, you know, you just encounter so many amazing places. It's just so beautiful. So many,
Mhm.
yeah, so many locales, and yeah, so it's endlessly inspiring. And then also you're, you know, oftentimes performing with amazing people, you know, and
Mm.
Right.
having with festivals playing on a single stage and
Mm.
everybody's playing on each other's stuff, or just, you know, getting to we did a show. It was sort of a bit of an odd show for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, which was
Okay.
That sounds like a
super great
party.
people.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it was in a sort of a half arena, so it was a pretty big crowd, but it
Oh,
was with
yeah.
Bruce Hornsby. And
Oh,
I was a big Bruce Hornsby fan when I was growing up, and so I was just freaking out. And he saw his band members, and I believe he saw our sound check. And so they came up and
Mm.
said, "Hey, do you want to sing with Bruce during the show?" And I
wow.
just I couldn't even believe it. So we got to go up there and sing like 3 songs with him, I think. And it's just that kind of thing is just, yeah, that's inspiring in a whole different way,
Oh,
you know. And
yeah.
yeah, so lots of opportunity for that, for sure.
I love that it's like a mix of the destination itself and then meeting the people and then the fellow artists and just that opportunity for serendipity and having these experiences that you could never plan or dream about. And that's incredible.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And then we get to know places so well, you know, and people so
Mm.
well. We've toured, like, I think we've toured to 48 of 48 states
Oh,
in
wow.
in in the States. Yeah, 48 states, all of Canada except for Newfoundland, unfortunately. But oh,
Mm.
and Nunavut. But the territories, other territories, and the rest of Canada. And
Oh,
just, yeah, those first few years, all these little places. So these places, you know, that most people will never get a chance to visit. Um, and those are often in kind of out of the way places, very pristine wildlife in Canada in particular, pristine scenery, and just, yeah.
mm.
So lots of inspiration.
And that's what we often talk about on this podcast too, like with business travels and with you with them touring, is it does often take you to places that you would never go otherwise. And like what a treat that is.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. I was not a big traveler before I
Mm.
started, you know, I nearly went to Europe, and then I was just like, no, I want to finish school. And I just, so yeah, the travel opportunities that we've had through with the band, ha just beyond my wildest dreams, you know, it's been really, really amazing. Yeah. But I do, one of the questions was the travel hacks. And I
Oh,
do have to say, because I want to say this,
Good.
probably my favorite thing that's a travel hack, and I am a salt addict, is a little salt shaker. I take it, and I get harassed by so many people about that. It's like, you can't, but like it's saved everybody's butt so many times. So a travel shaker, and Nexus.
yeah.
Nexus is a big
Oh,
one.
yeah.
That's a good one,
Yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah.
that's the first time I've heard of somebody traveling with a salt shaker. I need to
Yeah.
think about that. That's
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
saving people's butts even. Like, wow.
Yeah. This is like, yeah, someone will be like, "Oh my God, this meal is so bland." It's like, well, look at what I have here, that kind of thing.
how's your cholesterol?
See, I don't have to worry about it because I have low blood pressure, so I can eat all the
Yes,
salt I want.
I'm in a similar boat, so I could absolutely use this hack.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. Hey, Nikki, thank you so much for your time today. Can you tell our audience where they can find you and your music?
Well, we are all of the big ones: Apple Tunes or Apple Music, Spotify. Although I mean, if people can stream and then buy, that's great because streaming doesn't work so well for artists. But
Mm.
it's a good way to be introduced to the music and then come to a show.
All right.
Yay. Love that.
Uh,
Fantastic. Well, take care and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks
you.
so
You too.
much.
Thanks so much, you guys.
Wow, I really loved that conversation with Nikki. Yeah, I feel like she is such an inspirational person with her award-winning career and all of the experiences that she had. And we only just like we really focused on the business travel side, but wow, like she's such an amazing person.
We could easily do a part two with Nikki, and we barely scratched the surface, I think, of things we could have talked to her about. I especially like she's got to have some sort of record for the number of things that went wrong on one day of a trip. I've had stuff go wrong, but nothing, no series of errors or issues like what she shared with us. It was unbelievable. And to think that they just handled it so calmly, and they're probably a tighter band because of it. That was so cool.
Yeah, no, I love that a lot. And yeah, when you think about often as a solo business traveler, but they're a whole team, if you will, like a whole group that they have to keep track of. That was messy, but it was amazing how it all came together. And for me, I mean, just like we were talking about, she had mentioned she had kids, and that really changed things. So when I queued it up, I'm like, well, yeah, this is going to be. I'm sure it was wild trying to juggle it, but I was actually really, really inspired about her words of people suggesting if this isn't a good time, this will be detrimental for your career, like yada, yada, yada. All those things that women are always hearing as part of their careers. And just for her, owning this part of her life, having supportive partner, having supportive teammates, having a very loyal audience, all coming together and still hard, but just still being able to embrace different pieces of her life and also have a successful career. I was very touched by that.
Yeah, and to go through so many changes in life and to keep a band together for 23 years now, that's an amazing accomplishment.
Oh, it's incredible. And yeah, just very inspiring. And I think, as she said, just even the early days and learning all the different pieces of the business and the logistics and being able to grind it out and meeting different people and learning so much from those experiences to really fine tune a lovely group and a lovely life, to surround it is just, it's incredible.
All right. And with that, Pamela, please tell the good folks at home how they can find us.
Yes, lovely, Mark. You can find us on LinkedIn as our Meetings and Miles page, as well as for Mark and Pamela's personal pages. We'll put the links in our bio. As well, we are kicking off Instagram, so you can also check us out there.
Amazing. So please be sure to like, rate, and review. Give us a 5-star review. Helps people find us, and it makes me feel good about myself. So have a great day, everyone.
Safe travels, everyone.
Bye.